everyone. Good afternoon. I'd like to start off by saying that civic engagement has been a key value of mine since I first went to the polls with my parents at 6 years old. It's such a valuable memory ingrained in me. So today's conversation is extremely close to my heart. Thank you so much for joining us today for Wait What with BIPOC Women on the Ballot. My name is Nicole Young Martin, and I serve as the Community Investments Manager for the Women's Fund of Western Massachusetts. For over 25 years, the Women's Fund has provided community investments in the form of grants, capacity building workshops, hosting convenings around specific topics like this one, and uplifting women and girls serving organizations around strategic priorities, including economic security, addressing parity in positions of power and leadership, and freedom from gender-based violence, harm, and harassment. Our Wait What series allows us to further engage members of our community on how these issues directly impact those we serve and to provide resources on how to best address these disparities. This particular convening is important, especially today, as we celebrate State Representative Shirley Arriaga's start on Beacon Hill, while acknowledging that Black, Indigenous, women, girls, and gender-expansive people of color from Western Mass and actually across the entire state still remain underrepresented within our state legislators. Despite research pointing to a majority of households, especially in Hampden County, being run by single women of color, I believe it is even more vital that state representation looks like us, for that is a way of ensuring that our needs are heard and met. We would like to take this moment to give a special thank you to our underwriters, the Jamrock Group, Institute for Generative Leadership, and People's Bank for their continued support of women and girls in Western Massachusetts. It is because of their generous support that programs such as our Wait What series are provided complimentary to our community. Today's conversation will feature Representative Shirley Arriaga of 8th Hampden District, Tahira Amatu Wadood, Executive Director of Council on American Islamic Relations, Massachusetts, and Nina Liang, Executive Director of Emerge Massachusetts and City Councilor at Large for the City of Quincy, with our CEO, Donna Hagigat, serving as moderator. Panelist bios are available on our website. If time permits, we will open it up to Q&A for those of you who are joining us. We have people joining us from Facebook, YouTube, and Zoom. So please make sure if you have any questions to put them in the chat and we will collect them and moderate them appropriately. So thank you again for joining us, and I'd like to turn it over to our moderator, Donna.
Thank you so much, Nicole, and it's so great to be with you all and excited to be on Facebook with those of you who are watching live on Facebook as well. This is going to be a ride. I think this conversation is going to be all the feels, frustration, excitement, anger, probably at status quo and different things. And so, you know, inhale and exhale and get ready, right? So I am going to start off with a question for Nina. Nina and I have been conspiring together for a few years around women's leadership, and I'm so excited that she was able to join us. Nina, my question for you, with your own background, but also running Emerge for the last several years, paint the picture for us. What is the general picture in terms of how many women of color are actually getting on ballots and then getting into positions, you know, winning their elections? And also, what are you seeing in terms of the pipeline of folks who are raising their hands to say, I want to be, you know, in government?
Yeah, so first of all, Donna, thank you so much for putting this together and for inviting me to be part of this amazing panel. To my two fellow panelists, Representative, congratulations, and Tahira, when I looked up their information and who I was going to be sitting with, I was like, this is big. I don't know if I'm the right person for this. But I say that too, because it segues, I think, really well into answering that question. I've been doing this 7 years now, and I still have that imposter syndrome, right? That gut instinct to just be like, I'm not qualified for this. Why am I here? Why am I on this panel, right? It's just all those questions still flow, even though, again, I've been doing this 7 years. And I think that that is a huge barrier into just stepping up and running for office, right? We know all the statistics. I see some folks like Alex on here, who I've had the pleasure of working with in the past, and all these numbers are out there. And on average, right, they say it takes a woman to be asked 7 times before she even considers running for office. And I just, you know, I've had those kinds of conversations with folks where they say time and again, well, I'm not qualified because of this reason or that reason, right? And I rarely ever have that conversation with folks who identify as male, right? And so just even getting us, I think, to the point where we feel like we're qualified to run, or why do we even feel the need to be qualified, right? And how does that compute? I think that in and of itself is a barrier that we still haven't figured out how to get past. Short of having an incredible network, right, to share those kinds of issues and insecurities and push past it. That's why I love Emerge. I think it's great for that kind of network and support. But even looking at numbers overall, we are making great strides on the state level, thanks to folks like Representative Arriaga. But if you look across the state, the entire state, it's so underrepresented, right? When I'm talking about underrepresented, I don't just mean people of color, I just mean women in general. You look at school committee seats, city council seats, mayoral seats, right? Town manager, licensing board, city clerk, any and all of above, these things are really important and impact us day in and day out. And the representation just isn't there. I think that, again, we continue to make really great strides, and that's not unimportant to progress in the way that it inspires and lifts other people up. But we're far, far from being where we need to be to have, I think, equitable representation.
Thanks so much, Nina. I really appreciate that perspective. And now I'm going to turn to Tahira Amatal-Wadud, attorney and also board member at the Women's Fund. And Tahira, I want to ask you about your experience running for office. So you took on a 29-year incumbent when you ran for U.S. Congress in 2018, and you were one of the very few folks in Massachusetts, women of color, running for statewide or federal office. And you were also part of a nationwide trend of women running for federal office at the time that you ran. We remember it was like the post-Trump, rise up in anger. We can run the things better, right? So my two questions for you are: one, locally, what was the lasting impact of running as a woman, mother, person of color, and person of a marginalized faith? And two, what was it like to be a part of a historic trend nationwide?
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Nicole. And it's great to be with everybody, including our co-panelists. Really great questions. I'll take first the question about being a part of a national trend. I didn't know when we launched that it was a trend. So we launched December 2017 for the 2018 primary. And I thought I was doing just what needed to be done in our section of the world. And little would I know at that time that I was actually part of a massive movement. There's a documentary called 529, and that it actually follows Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who was running in the same race. And I think it might have followed Cori Bush, who didn't win that race, but won subsequently. Who else was in the 2018 class? Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, our own Massachusetts' own Ayanna Pressley, Lauren Underwood. And so you have all of these fabulous women who were also running at that time, but there was no master plan or grand plan to let's do this. I didn't know any of them, wonder how much any of them knew each other. Nonetheless, as things started to unfold, you realize that you're right. It was the push, what people refer to as the response to the Trump presidency, and it was beautiful and historic. Again, Ayanna Pressley didn't launch until February. Oh, knock down the house. Okay, yes, I don't know where. 529 is because it was 529 women who ran for federal office. That's where I got the number from. I'm like, wait, this doesn't sound right. That's right. And she didn't launch until February. I had launched in December. And so then as the news started covering these stories, and particularly as the media began to shape the narrative of what was happening, then and only then was I a welcome discussion here in our corner of the world and in the discourse throughout the nation. Initially, my challenge to a 29-year incumbent was not well received. It was not covered. My name was not said until we realized that, whoa, this is really interesting. And we being Western Mass, are a part of something that's happening throughout the nation. And then it was well received by the greater public. Running locally, I think the impact of my being in the race did have a major impact on even who we have in office now locally, because you have a number of women who have specifically said to me, if you can do it, I can do it. And those women are in office in the state legislature now. So representation matters. It builds confidence. It builds camaraderie. When you'd go out on the campaign trail, you would see people that you know as your friends also running for down ballot seats. And so I am very happy that those people who supported the effort of my campaign also created and indirectly supported a legacy of women in political leadership here in Western Massachusetts. And we just don't know the continued ripple effects of that.
That's awesome. I love the phrase women lift as they climb. And one of the things I'm struck with, Tahira, in hearing you say that is about the community that was really started by you. You were ahead of that trend, as you said, but that you both benefited from a community because of what was happening on the national scale. But now you are also kind of creating community for those who have been running, are running, will run as well. And speaking of those who have run, we have Representative Shirley Arriaga with us. And I would like to ask you, Representative Arriaga, hearing what Tahira just shared about her experience running, we'd love to know from you, what was your experience from running? And certainly we also want to give you a shout out for winning and hear from you kind of what you're expecting so far. Early days, of course, it's only a number of days that you've been in office.
Well, I want to thank everyone for taking the time just to have this conversation. It's important that we do have this conversation. I want to thank my co-panelists for sharing their stories and just having the courage to run and speak up for what is right. My experience running, you see me laughing, you see me smiling, but it resonates with both of the other co-panelists. I am a woman of color, and I am a mom. I decided to take up I decided to go against what we call the establishment in my community. I ran for city council at large in a 2.5-month sprint with no real experience on running and what it entailed. But I said, things need to change. And I'm not one of those who will sit and wait for change to come. If the change that I want is not here, then I have to take the initiative. Especially when I have a little one looking at me and seeing what I am doing, how I'm reacting to our daily lives here. So I ran against city councilors who are in office for over 20 years, and I missed my seat by 1%. 1%. For a first timer, no experience, no background, no coverage. I mean, nobody wanted to talk about this random mom who got upset and wants to do something about the system and the lack of action that our administration was having. But I found that was not a loss. If anything, it was a victory. It showed me that my community was ready and was waiting for the change and the person to come and move things along. So it inspired me. It didn't discourage me, if anything. And shortly after that, the representative who held my seat for 32 years decided he was not seeking re-election. My phone, as you can imagine, from these constituents who had just seen me in the fall election, started reaching out. Are you running? Are you running? Are we doing this? And I had to pause for 2 seconds and wait, I just finished running a campaign. I'm going to run another one. But if I don't, who's going to be the next person, et cetera, et cetera? Do I have the support? Do I have the backing? All these questions come. And am I qualified enough? Like Nina says, am I? Wait a minute. Quickly, and I said this quickly, I'm looking around, I know who's in office, I know who's our elected officials, and if they can do it with less education, less experience, they're not as professional as we would want them to be, there is no absolute reason that a woman who's over the age of 18 wants to run shouldn't run. never mind a person who is an educator, who went to school, who is currently teaching in the school. So it's a mom who just wants what's best for her community. There's no reason that I shouldn't run. If I want to run and I believe in myself and I know I'm doing this for the right reasons, I will run. And that's exactly what I did. I announced in February that I was running. I was the underdog. So news coverage wasn't there. Any of these press releases I sent weren't covered. I was ignored. And the only time I was mentioned as the underdog. She's getting outraised 6-1, 8-1. That was the only coverage that I got to elevate my opponents and the amount of fundraisers or income that they had raised. But I kept at it. I didn't pay attention to that. I didn't pay attention to the constituents, the very few constituents that told me at the door, why do you think you should be our representative? What gives you the right to run? I was told this, and I'm sure the other colleagues and the other panelists can relate. Oh, why should I vote for a woman? Why should I vote for a woman of color? These things were said to me. But I said, you know what? I'm not going to let those few naysayers stop me. I'm going to give it my all. And all that noise and all that can definitely discourage us from running anyone, whether you're a female or a male. I said, I'm just going to stick to what I know and what I'm trying to do. And that is be there for my community. And I did. So long story short, my experience running was a very interesting one. I probably should write a book.
We are looking forward to that book. And my favorite thing of what you said was I had to pause for like 2 seconds before you decided to run. So thank you so much for that. That's very inspirational. And I just want to turn the kind of microphone around a little bit here. Instead of my asking more questions, I thought it would be fun to mix it up a bit and have you all ask each other a question. And so I want to start with Nina. Do you have a question for either the representative or for Tahira?
I do.
Or
And
both?
if it's okay, I have a question that's going to start with a story just to sort of explain the direction that I'm coming from. So showing up is so important, but it's also exceptionally challenging. It's personally draining. It's hard, right? This is not easy by any means. You know, being the only Chinese American city councilor in Quincy, there was an issue that came up one time, and it had to do with, you know, kids on bicycles and, you know, damage to cars, and they were just sort of doing some really dangerous things. And one of my colleagues wanted to sort of amend the policy on how to properly and safely ride a bicycle in the city. There was no malice behind it. This is one of those, you know, what is it? What's your intention versus your impact, right? So anyways, we were trying to use this to curb the dangerous bike riding in Quincy. But a piece of it actually just was a red flag for me, right? Because I read through it and thought, wow, this new piece of legislation is actually going to allow folks to potentially call the police on people who are riding bicycles, like my grandpa. You know, that we have a huge API community in Quincy. Typically, a lot of the older API folks in Quincy use bicycles to get around, and they don't ride it the way that it was dictated in this piece of legislation. So the unintended impact, right, trying to create a piece of legislation to curb some dangerous things was actually going to create a way for those who frankly are maybe racist or didn't want Asians riding on their bicycles in Quincy, right, to call the cops on them. So it's those little moments that like make me feel like, okay, I'm here, right? We had this conversation. It's important. I provided this insight. That's good. And you want to hang your hats on those moments. But it's really hard when you also have those moments of people attacking you, calling you names, saying some really personal, deep attacks about you, right? And it's hard to just say, I'm just not going to respond to that. So I share this with you all to say, I know both of you in your run for office, and not even just your run for office, but in your public service work, I'm sure have more moments than you can remember of those small little victories of what it means because you were in the room. But I'm also pretty confident that you all only really remember the really bad moments. So what do you do in those bad moments to get yourself out of it and say, I'm in the space for a reason and I have to keep at it? So Representative, I'd love to go to you first, and then I'd love to hear from you as well and see what it is that you can provide out there for tools that we can all use to move past those hard times.
Thank you for sharing that, Nina. It's a great story. And it's important that we, once again, share these stories to to give each other confidence and the skills and the courage to overcome. Definitely these stories, these incidents, I say stories now, but these incidents when you're faced in a situation and sometimes I tell myself a lot, why are you so shocked, right? When you hear something so offensive and so hateful and demeaning, and it's like, why are people so mean? Why can people be so dirty? And of course, you have to reflect, and you have to take a second. And I like to tell myself this, and I've always done this in my work. Try not to take it personal. And I love that. I love when everyone tells you, don't take it personal, don't take it personal. And it's like, how do I not take it personal? If I wasn't a woman of color, that would have been said. So it is personal because there's nothing else. If I was different color skin and my name was, if I was a male, it would be completely different. So how can I not take it personal? It's my gender, it's my race, it's personal. But then, right, so the attack, is that attack a reflection of me, or is it a reflection of that person? And for the most part, it is, of course, that person for whatever reason, whether they're going through a hard time at home, family, loved ones, or they were just brought up to see things in a certain light. But that speaks more about that person than it does you. And I'm not saying it doesn't hurt, because it absolutely does hurt, and everybody wants. And I'm going to tell you exactly who tells me to just shake it off. It's not personal. It's men. The men are always telling me it's not a personal attack on me. I haven't met a woman who hasn't said, no, that's definitely something very offensive. I would feel just as you have felt. So the men like to tell me that don't take it personal. Don't let it bother you. Once again, they have not been in our shoes. They haven't been on the other side of those comments, of those attacks. But I try to remember, this is more a reflection of this person, their hatred, their ignorance, whatever it is, their situation that's ongoing. And as much as it's hurtful and offensive and can definitely discourage a person from whatever it is that you were doing at that time, you got to remember, you can't let them win. If I gave up every time someone said something offensive or told me I wasn't qualified, or what gives me the right, we wouldn't be anywhere. I don't think any of us would be anywhere. So we can't let them deter us. I would say it's okay to be bothered. Don't let anyone tell you it shouldn't bother you. Don't let anyone tell you that, because you're entitled to feel how you feel. And no one should be able to tell you how to feel. So definitely realize that your feelings are valid, but don't let that stop you. If anything, use that as a fuel. Use that as a fuel, because those are the folks who are, let's call them your obstacles. We need to overcome those obstacles so we can get to the other side, so we can help, because they are the minority. They're not the majority of the people that are going to be happy for you, who are applauding you and supporting you. So those hard moments, if you need to take the minute, take the day and deal with that emotion, absolutely do it, but don't let that deter you. Don't let that be the end all, because one person's words should not determine your life. So that would be my suggestion. And just dig in deep. Believe it or not, every time someone says something negative like that to one of us, it just makes us stronger. So just dig in deep, feel what you need to feel, and then come back stronger.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. I'm sitting here thinking about a situation that I found myself in after the campaign, and in a moment of vulnerability I'll share with you all, is that I felt that in 2019 and 2020, something in me changed. And I feel like it was an adverse impact of the campaign. I began to lose my word recall. So I'd be speaking to people and I couldn't remember basic words, or I'd struggle. And the only reason I could justify what was happening with me and my interactions with individuals, even my communication style, was the enormous amount of stress from the campaign. And I am a litigator and have been for 17 years, even though I'm running a nonprofit now. I still have my cases. I'm in court 3 days a week. Not as much now, but so I've always in my professional life have had public presentation, need to articulate clearly, consistently, but running for office was particularly difficult. And there was one day in particular, which I think encapsulates what I am calling the sustained toxic stress that I was under. It was one day in particular, probably 10 days before the election. And I was under this attack, this really Islamophobic attack. It was very strange. People were sending flyers to voters. It was scary. People didn't understand why they were getting these flyers. They were saying that I wanted to basically force conversion on people. There were somebody had drawn pictures of me with flyers and all of this stuff. And it was creepy. It was very bad. And it was scary. And then we had people calling the campaign and asking me questions about how do I feel about it. And there were lots of comments on social media that I was a terrorist, because that's the one thing you can say to a Muslim that will gain traction, or say about a Muslim will gain traction, is she's anti-Semitic and she's a terrorist. And I didn't have any of that in my history. But manufactured drama also slows you down and keeps you from making headway. And so on this particular day, I was due to speak to senior citizens in Pittsfield. So we flew up to Pittsfield to speak to a group of senior citizens. It was about 36 of them. And then I had another meeting, I don't know where, maybe like Holyoke or something. But then by the end of the day, I was holding a press conference. And we had decided the day before that we were going to have a press conference. And I told them, bring all your questions about my terrorist background. Bring all your questions about my anti-Semitism. Is going down in Springfield at the Holiday Inn at 3:00. I'm having a press conference. So we're going to get through this once and for all. And so I had to be self-possessed enough to get through each of those campaign events. And then meet me downtown Springfield. We're going to hash it out. And that was what my life was like, essentially, from January 2018 until September 4th, 2018, at that high level, not being able to have a bad day, right? Not being able to have a bad day. And I had to continue to show strength and confidence to the people that believed in the campaign and believed in me and believed in the message. And we had overwhelming support, but I also had to show strength and resilience to the detractors. And so just showing up in that way for that long under those circumstances, I think did have an impact on me, right? I do think it had an impact on me. I'm fine. My word recall is still a little weird. Who knows? It could have come from whatever, just the experience. It could have come from COVID the next year. But I do notice that I've been changed, and I attribute some of that not so great change to the stress that the campaign put on me.
Tahira, you're also really conveying to us that you didn't get the benefit of running about what you would do. You were playing defense about who you were.
That's right.
And that's really, really tragic and ridiculous.
That's right.
So I want to turn it over to Rep. Arriaga. Do you have questions for either Nina or Tahira, or both?
It's a question and also a comment. Will you be running for offices in the near future? I'm excited to see and hear possibilities. I'm all about possibilities and our sisterhood and getting more women elected, whether it's at the House or the Senate or anywhere, mayoral seats. I'm hopeful that you guys will consider running again and for different positions, Nina, if you are still in City Council. And I'll be here to listen and cheer you guys on. I hope that you guys will.
Any comments from Nina or Tahira? Any answers, or are you going to ponder them?
For me personally, I think I still don't have the capacity to do that one again. But I also desire to have really great representation in our communities at all levels. And so at times I think about it, but for right now, today in 2023, I can contribute to the community in different ways more effectively. That's not going to cause additional word recall and memory loss.
I totally understand, and I appreciate your candidacy. It's hard, and it requires a lot of mental strength and top of being your regular lives and working as a professional in your nonprofits. I mean, your plate is full. So I like to tell folks this one. They're like, so why did you run? And I said, well, long story short, I got out of the military. I did my 10 years and I was in law school, and I said, I want some type of life balance. I want to live more and spend time with my little one. And then I ran for state office. I'm like, don't do what I did. I definitely want and encourage all who want to run and who have an inkling to do so. Absolutely. But definitely put yourself first, and your health is very, very important. And in the future, who knows what possibilities are there. But just know that no matter what you're doing, you're giving back to the community. And that's what it's all about, whether it's supporting candidates, encouraging others, or running yourself, right? So as long as you're doing that, we're winning. So thank you.
And I just want to add to that too, if I could. Well, first and foremost, and I think both my fellow panelists will agree, right? The very, very political answer is like, well, you never say never. When people ask, what are you running for? Are you running for higher office? So that's like my real polished, like political answer, Representative, is, right now I'm focused on the city council seat that I currently hold and would love to count on your support to my reelection. So can I count on your support? So that's my very political answer, right? But all joking aside, I think Tara has a good point. Like it's exceptionally draining. I say this all the time, but it's true. And it's not me just, puffing anybody's feathers, but I don't do this work alone. When I go out on a campaign, I use a lot of the we terms on things, much to the chagrin of a lot of my campaign supporters. Like, you got to say I, and I'm like, well, but it's not about me, right? Like, my name's on the ballot, and yes, I'm the one that loses sleep. And to Sarah's point, like, you're the one that sits with all that stress. But the other side to that is that we don't do this work alone. I'm not an expert in everything, right? I come from the restaurant business and the restaurant background. So if you're going to come to me and talk about development all day long, let's talk leases, let's talk financing, right? That's my jam. But I don't have kids, and I didn't go to public schools past third grade. So if you come to me and start talking to me about schools, that's not my expertise, right? And so again, it's such a group effort to even be effective once you're in office. But even running for office, right? I couldn't get through those nights had it not been for those late night phone calls to my incredible mentors, right? Freaking out about, oh, somebody posted this thing on Facebook. Do I respond? And I know it might sound silly, like in the past, but in that moment, you're like, well, if I don't or like, there's a community event happening over here, but I have to go door knocking. Oh, but like, if I don't go to this community event, somebody's going to text me and be like, Nina, the opponents are at this event. Why aren't you here? And it's like, oh, because I'm knocking on doors. And then it's like your fundraiser calls, and it's like, did you raise enough money today that you're supposed to? So I could see Representative going like this right now, like, because like the anxiety it gives you when you're running for office. And it is those people you surround yourself with that make it possible for you to do this work, to get up every morning and to keep going. And absent any one of those people, as candidates, as elected officials, we would fail at our jobs, right? And so I use that to also say that this is what drives me at the work at Emerge, right? Rep, you're saying that we have so many different things going on. For my day job at Emerge, Massachusetts, we've trained now 500 people. Essentially 1 in 5 people who've gone through our program have run for office, but every single one of those 500 graduates have been impactful in other ways. They ran campaigns of their fellow Emerge graduates, right? They themselves worked on campaigns after the fact and then became part of, cabinet positions, or they became lobbyists, or they joined their own nonprofits and started lobbying issues and being impactful that way, right? Like, there's so many ways in which these 500 graduates have made a difference across the state. And I think that's a really great snapshot to show, again, people like Tahir and their value, and say, you don't have to be in elected office to be impactful. I'm not the reason the work in Quincy gets done. It's those people around me, right? And so I want to stress that, yes, it's important. Put your name on the ballot, run, represent your community. You're doing the work already, likely, as the advocate, right? I assure you, everyone listening into this conversation here and on Facebook and on Instagram and on Twitter, They're already doing the work in their community. So why shouldn't they be the ones in office, right? And if they choose not to be the ones in office, they are already making an impact to those who are in office in other real meaningful ways. And so I think all in all, whether you're on the ballot or not, the most important thing is to step up, right? Reach out. I remember talking to folks and like, I can just call my congressperson. I'm like, yeah, you're their boss, right? Like if they're not doing their job, you can fire them by not voting for them. So yes, pick up the phone and talk to your representative, right? I think the more we can all get that message out there, and Donna, again, I really commend you for putting this panel on, because this is another bite at the apple for all of us to spend our late morning getting that message out there. And if one person leaves today's panel saying, I am going to run for office, or they leave the panel saying, I am going to call my mayor and see what's going on with our taxes this year, or somebody calls your city councilor and says, what's going on with the bicycles and how you ride them in the city, right? That's a win for us. And so it is a slow climb. It is a tedious climb, but God Almighty, thank God for the community we all have together, because without, again, every single one of us doing this, none of this work would happen. So that's my soapbox sort of moment today.
Thank you, Nina, and credit where credit's due. This was Nicole's idea for this panel, so thank you to Nicole. Chihiro, what question do you have for either Nina, Rep. Arriaga, or both?
I guess the question that I would have is, since we recognize that running as women, it has its own unique challenges. If you were queen of the world, what would you implement or advise to make life a little easier for the woman candidate, or more effective, or less stressful?
I'm going to be a little selfish here and put in a plug. When I first ran for office, I live in Quincy, which is a stone's throw from Boston. I didn't know about Emerge, right? And I wish I did. It essentially gives you the tools on how to run. We don't train on policy. We don't tell you what kind of Democrat you need to be. So long as you identify as a Democrat and you're a self-identified woman or identify as non-binary, that's it. Here are the tools. Go do what you will with them, right? And it sort of made me realize, like, access is so limited, right? In every sort of definition of that word, it's access to either these tools or access to those who could help you, right? If you don't have those tools, access to those who, can point you in the right direction if you're not even sure where to start. Like all of these things, there's such a big lack of access. And I think that if I were queen of the world, I would start by honestly just trying to find ways to better communicate more directly with those who aren't typically in these spaces, right? I got really lucky that I met people in the sort of political industry when I first ran for office. Michelle Wu was one of my mentors. She was an Emerge graduate. That's how I even knew about the organization, right? And just the guidance that she gave me, because I voted twice in my life when I first ran for office. When somebody said you should run for city council, I was like, A, I don't know how, and B, I don't know what that is, right? And so I'm on the ballot, not even knowing what the job is. I would like to believe I'm still a good counselor now at this point, but I share that story to say that the lack of access to underrepresented communities, women of color, you think about the new American majority, right? It's young people, it's unmarried women, it's, single women, all of these things. We are not in these spaces. And so how do you even get into these spaces? How do you talk to somebody like a Donna, somebody like a Representative Arriaga, somebody like a Tahira, like a Nicole, to even start that conversation, right? And feel like, oh, that is an option for me, right? There's such a disconnect, right, between those who are impacted by these decisions and those who are making the decisions. And it's such a huge barrier, right, to close that gap. And so, yeah, again, if I were queen of the world, I would find some really effective, consistent way, reliable way to better connect resources to those people who are providing them, right? It's a huge gap. It's a huge gap. And we could use as much help as possible for sure.
Definitely. Beautiful answer.
That's a good one. I've been thinking, like, I'm trying to listen and think all at the same time here. My first thoughts are always just the funny ones, so I won't share them with you. I'll sound like a dictator. Definitely not ever running for office, or my experience running for city council at large, very late in the summer. I didn't know what I was doing. There was no roadmap. I felt like I had a couple of resources in the point that I knew of some elected officials from my prior work, and I had gone to law school, so I knew a little, but really campaigning and what that entailed, that was unknown. It was a mystery that I was gonna figure out, because if I don't know something, I'm gonna learn. And it definitely saddens me, because with what I knew and the resources available to me, I was able to get a little glimpse of what it really entailed to run and what it consisted of. And it just makes you think of all of those other folks who don't have those connections, who have not been in those rooms with politicians or campaign managers. So how would they get started? Especially when it comes to women. I think we've been told, and I think both of my co-panelists can agree, that raising funds for men is easy. They'll have a conversation with their friend. Hey, Joe, I'm running. I need your support. Boom, done. They have a check. For us, it is the most difficult part of a campaign. Whether it's our pride or people want to question, why do you need the funds? I mean, it becomes very difficult, it's very challenging. And of course, we know that money doesn't win a campaign, but definitely helps with materials and getting your campaign and your staff and everything situated. So definitely it's a needed portion of it. But it is more difficult for women. So men have these opportunities that most women don't. The accessibility and that we don't. So running for office, on top of it all, it's like, really, we're just getting thrown into the deep ocean, and we're hoping that we'll swim or we'll sink. So what can we do? What could I do or recommend that would help other folks who want to run and are less connected to make their life easier? The question is, what shouldn't we be doing? I believe there should be some, and I know there's great nonprofits out there that are setting up shops and kind of sharing our experiences and trying to help those others, but there should be some type of, I want to say, some guidelines from the government in place, because government officials are elected by the people. So why shouldn't they already be educated on how that process really works? So I would say transparency, more transparency and tools for everyone to access them, because the 101 on running for campaigns, running for office, whether it's a school committee or federal position, either you figure it out or you're never going to get there. And maybe you'll connect with Merge Mass. That would be great, but some folks can't even hear about those groups out there. So maybe the government should have some sort of resource for folks. I would say that's empowering the people. We won't get into that, but definitely should be something that it's not a secret, right? Only if you have the secret formula to get there. No, absolutely not. And so my list can go on and on and on, but definitely having that transparency on how the campaign process works, and definitely with the whole fundraising part, which is a big portion of it, which deters a lot of folks from running. How do you raise funds to actually run a campaign? So I would think that information should definitely be available and maybe provided by the government.
Awesome, that's really great. One of the questions we got ahead of time was around, how does community support women of color who are running, whether they've won or they've lost? And what I'm hearing loud and clear is certainly fundraising, right? So supporting those candidates by donating to their campaigns, because it is a harder climb for them. The more interesting part of that question, I think, is also, how do you support women of color candidates who ran and lost? Both Representative Arriaga and Tahira ran and lost. Nina, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think you won your race. Did you lose any races? Okay, so tell us, Representative Arriaga and Tahira, what would be meaningful in terms of what was maybe meaningful from any support you received from the community when you lost, and what could have been even adding to that?
If I can start, when I was running, someone said to me, and he was a very good supporter. He says, but if you lose, you have a network of people who support you, and that's a form of capital that you may be able to use to throw behind either other candidates, other initiatives, particularly policy initiatives. And he was the only person that told me that. I didn't really take that to heart. Like, I didn't keep my mailing list and things like that. But I wish, because once you lose, you don't have the same structure. You don't have money to pay people to manage the mailing list or to organize that. And I was extremely exhausted. So I wish that I had somebody or a team of people who could have helped me secure that. Because imagine if, I think I had like 2,000 people on the mailing list. It was a very engaged list. So when I checked the analytics, people were largely opening things that I wrote. So if I had taken that, and I mean, I'm sure people would have disconnected once the race was over, but not everyone. Some people would have still been interested in other candidates who supported different policy positions. I wish that I had nurtured that network of 20,000 voters and continue to use that for good in the area, number one. The other thing I think is very important, and we're starting to see it in politics now in a not so nice way, but when I thought about this a couple of years ago, it's this: for women, for Black people, for anybody who doesn't look like a white male, when they are messy, and I say messy meaning when somebody uncovers something that's either fake or even true, but just not convenient, boy, are we the first ones to be like, yeah, maybe she's not the right one. Like, we bail out on people when they are messy, but for some reason, our messy is never acceptable. His messy is ignorable. I think we have to hunker down in our support for candidates, even through some messy, because when you analyze it, we do it for white men all of the time. And we exclude and discount women of color at the drop of a dime.
Great point. Representative Arriaga, from your first race, if you remember losing.
So I was very fortunate. Definitely a good reason why I did run for state rep right after is that my community was excited. I was told, please don't get discouraged if you don't win. When I didn't win, please don't be discouraged that you didn't win. Please run again. We need you. So those words definitely stood with me. And I heard that from several supporters and constituents across. And the other one was, we need you. We need you. So that carried from the fall election to my most recent election, and I will never forget. So when I was tired, when I was questioning, should I do this? When you have your doubters out there posting and saying whatever it is they were saying, it's like those folks, those comments that were made sincerely to me, they helped me. They definitely helped me in those dark days, those dark moments. My community needed me. My community was happy that I was running, and they wanted me to run. So even though some others weren't happy about my candidacy, the voters who mattered wanted me. So it just stood with me, it resonated with me, and that's why I'm here, and I'm honored to be here, and looking forward to making them all proud.
That's awesome. I love those inspirational words. I was going to ask you all to do it in a lightning round about like what you would tell other women of color who were running or wanted to run, but I feel like you pretty much captured that, Representative Arriaga. So I want to thank all three of you for being on this panel. I think it's been so illuminating for all of us, especially any folks who are not people of color, to understand what that experience has been like to run, or particularly as people who identify as women of color and often have other identities as well. So we really, really appreciate your time and your courage and your tenacity. And we expect to see more from all of you. Representative Arriaga, we're certainly going to be watching you from in office as well. Nina, we're looking forward to the next class of Emerge champions as well. And Tahira, we're so grateful for the community that you are generatively, bringing forward with your experiences and mentoring as well. From the Women's Fund side, again, I want to thank Nicole for putting this all together for us and making it look easy. And we will be sending out a version of this recording for folks and some takeaway materials as well. And we hope that Nina, Tahira, and Representative Arriaga, you will stay engaged with us. We're going to be coming out in the middle of the year with a status of women and girls and non-binary people's report. And so we'll be excited to get your perspective on that, particularly around elected leadership. So thank you all for tuning into this program, and we hope to see you again soon on another, wait, what? Thanks.